So for the last in 9 February, we as a Maronite church we celebrate the feast of Saint Maron, and so we are in this time, better time to talk about this Maronite church. So I prepared for you also a PowerPoint, so you can follow me with all the details. And so we divided our conference in two parts. I will introduce the Maronite Church, and then I will be ready to answer all your questions about the maybe the church in Lebanon, the Eastern Church, and the Maronite Church. So I will share. Merci. Okay, so we talk about the Maronite. So briefly about the history and about this church in Lebanon, but not only in Lebanon, but start from Syria to Lebanon. And now we talk about the Maronite church all over the world. We have a very big diaspora in all the world. So in Africa, in USA, in Canada, Australia, and in Europe. So in different countries. So that's why we talk about this Maronite church from a hermit, begin with a person. His name is Maroon, or the Saint Maroon. So it's the first characteristic of this church is a hermetic church. So born with Saint Maroon, and how it's developed through the ages from Saint Maroon to the family, or we call it Beit Maroon, or the house of Maroon, or the monastery of Maroon. So many names about the Maronites from the beginning to a church. And Maronite, we talk also about nations, because the Maronite church have two parts: this spiritual and hermetic tradition, and also the Maronite. Now in Lebanon, for example, they through the history they have also a political role in the history. So that's why we talk about church and nations. But before to introduce the Maronite church, it's good to talk a little bit about the churches in the Middle East, or in the Eastern Church. So the Maronite church, the first characteristic of this church, we call this church, it's a Syriac Antiochian church. So it's born in this area where the Christians, they have this tradition or this culture, Syriac culture. And when we talk about Syriac, it's not Syrian, it's not Syriac today, it's not Syria today. Syriac is the languages, it's very close to the Aramaic, the spoken language of Jesus Christ. So the church, the first image of this church or characteristic of the church is a Syriac church. And Antiochia, it was the capital in the time of the in the 4th and 5th century, where this church was born. So when we defined about the Maronite church, we call ourselves, we are a Syriac Antiochian church. And at the same time, we have this the second characteristic, it's an Eastern Catholic Church. We belong to the Eastern Catholic Church. And sure, we belong to the Catholic Church all over the world. And I will talk about this. So we have this two traditions: Oriental, Eastern Church, Syriac Church, and in communion with Rome or with the Catholic Church. When we talk about the Catholic Church, just to be clear, what we think when we talk as Eastern Church about the Catholic Church. You know, when we talk about Catholic Church, we talk about Christians. They went from Jerusalem and they encounter different traditions, cultures, customs, and languages. And that's why soon the church became a communion of churches united in love with each other, looking to the see of Peter in Rome as the first among them all. That's what we talk about the Catholic Church. It's many churches in all over the world, many traditions, many cultures, but they are united with a head or overhead who is the Pope. You know about this. The Catholic Church, when we talk the Catholic Church in the Middle East, because it's, I don't know why, but it's a fact. When we as Eastern Church, we come to Europe and we start to talk about church or about our church, I have always this impression and this reaction from the people when I was in Germany and now I am in Romanian. First, many of the people, they know nothing about the church in the Middle East. For them, when we talk, we say, I come from Lebanon, and I come from Syria, or from Palestine, or I don't know, from everywhere, from this country. The first reaction, you are Muslim. I say, no, I am not Muslim. But you talk Arabic. Yes, I talk Arabic because it's the language in this country. So they cannot make this difference between talking Arabic and be a Christian in the Middle East. And they start to ask, do you have churches? They don't know a lot about us. So that way, and when we say I am Oriental Church, but I am not Orthodox Church. I am also Catholic Church, Eastern Catholic Church. They don't know a lot about that. That's why I talk about these churches, and it's good to know that in the Catholic Church comprised of 23 Eastern churches and one Western church. When we get the Western church is the Latin church. But we have in the Middle East or in the Oriental church, different churches. They are from different rites, different traditions, and I will expose for you what kind of traditions we have in the Middle East as churches in between us. And we have so this 23. And all this Eastern Catholic Church, they are united with Rome, or better to say, we are in communion now with the Rome, with the Pope as the visible head. And John Paul II, when he talked about the Eastern Catholic Church, he said that gathered in the one spirit, breathing as through with two lungs, the East and the West. I go forward to talk about one of these Eastern Catholic churches is the Maronite Church. Okay, so it's one of these 23 different churches in the Middle East. The Maronite Church, she has her own hierarchy composed of a patriarch who is her father and head, and over 40 bishops who shepherd the many eparchies in Lebanon, the Middle East, and throughout the world. When we talk about these Eastern Catholic churches, it's this 23 churches. They are divided in 6 major traditions of the Catholic Church. You have in the Middle East, the Alexandrian tradition. We have Antiochian tradition. We have Armenian tradition, Chaldean tradition, Constantinopolitan or Byzantine tradition, and sure the Latin or Roman. When we talk about the Catholic Church, we have Alexandrian, for example, the Coptic Catholic Church, Antiochian tradition, Maronite, Syriac, or Catholic Church. We belong to this Greek Catholic is more Byzantine, sure. Armenian, we have Armenian Catholic Church, we have Chaldean, the church from Iraq, but united with Rome. And sure, we have in Lebanon and in the Middle East, the Latin or the Roman tradition. Each Catholic church practices a common faith according to one of the six major traditions. The Maronite church follows this, as I said, the Antiochian tradition. All churches in the Middle East within the communion of Catholic churches share the same dogmatic faith, the seven mysteries, moral teachings, communion with the Pope of Rome. So we are different in cultures, in languages, in traditions. Maronite, for example, we speak Syriac, Aramaic language. Copt, they have their own language, their own liturgy, but we share the same faith, mysteries, teachings, and we are all in communion with the Pope. And each church have her own head, the Patriarch. So as the Maronites, they have their own. All Catholics believe the same truths of the faith, yet worship differently. One could say they share the same essence of faith, but have a different expression of that faith. Each church embraces its own culture and tradition to express her faith in Jesus, the risen Lord. This also, Eastern Catholic churches, each of the Catholic churches encompasses a unique liturgy, theology, spirituality, and discipline. Is characterized by her own cultural and linguistic tradition, is guided by a patriarch, major archbishop, metropolitan, or other ear, who along with their synod of bishops are in full communion with the Pope, the successor of St. Peter in Rome. The Maronite Church, directly. When we talk about the Maronite Church dates back to the early Christians of Antioch, where they were called Christians for the first time. She still uses as her liturgical language Syriac, a dialect of the Aramaic that Jesus himself spoke, and takes her name from the hermit priest Saint Maron, who died in 5th century in year 410 after Jesus Christ. Okay, so this church is begin in 5th century with hermit priest Saint Maron, and it's good to know that the Maronite Church is the only Eastern Catholic Church who is called by name of a saint, not by the language or the tradition. For example, we talk about Syriac Catholic Church, Armenian Catholic Church. So they are designed by the language or the tradition. The Maronite, the only church, all churches who is called by name of a saint that have a meaning. This personality, this Saint Maron, was very influenced for the first community called in the time Maronite. That means the disciples of Maron, of Saint Maron. What we know about Saint Maron? Saint Maron lived between 350 till 410 in the north of Syria today, okay, in the region of Antioch, but very near to Aleppo and Barad. Okay, it was the place where he's born and where he was acting and preaching and living as a hermit. What we know about his life, we have two sources. the one who talk about or we know about his life, a life of Saint Maron, is from the Bishop Theodoride of Syros, Theodoride de Syr of Syr, and he wrote an history of the monks of Syria. And among all what he talked about the different monks and hermetic life, he talked about Saint Maron. And it's a text from this book who explain or who talk about the story of Saint Maron. He said, after him I shall recall Maron, for he too adorned the godly choir of the saints, embracing the open air life. He repaired to a hilltop formerly honored by the impious, and he talked about his life. He cured not only infirmities of the body, but applied suitable treatment to souls as well. So he was known in all the region as a spiritual person and a hermit. So, and he chose a way of life in a top of a mountain, and he spent all his time by praying and preaching. So that it was this way till now in our spirituality as a Maronite church. We have always till now we conserve this tradition that we have hermits till now in our church. In the when you visit Lebanon or when you have the chance or opportunity to visit Lebanon, you will see that all the churches they build in stones or in mountains or in a valley, and we have in different places churches, monasteries, and hermit who live also, and they cultivate this tradition till now. The second reference for us about Saint Maron is surely a letter from Saint John Chrysostom, who wrote a letter for Saint Maron in 407 when he was going to the exile. So he wrote to Maron, and he talked to him as a very close friend. So he talked about, and he asked him, I don't want now to read all the text, but we can find in this letter how they were always in communion, in prayers, and this how we say it's this friendship between two saints. So he talked to Maron, and he asked him to pray for him. So all please pray for us. So it was also as a witness now about the life and of Saint Maron. In this area, Barad, Farnabo, Aleppo, close to Aleppo, in this region Saint Maron lived, and he attracted men and women to be his disciples. And around him, it was the first community called in the time Abna. I will say in Syriac Bnai and Bat Maroon. That mean the children or how we say son and daughters of Saint Maron. And later, in the Council of Chalcedon, they called them the Maronite, or the community of the Maronite people. Okay. In this, Maronite Church in 4th century with hermit Saint Maron died in 410. Okay. After that, we have the first community. How this church is born in or begin her history in the church, in the entire church, in the time in the Eastern churches. You know that in 4th century and 5th century began all the how we say this Christological debate and all the councils, and begin the first divisions in the church, and especially not in the West churches, but in the Eastern church. So begin from the Council of Nicaea in 325. We had three big patriarchs: Rome, Alexandria, Antioch. After this council, in the Council of Constantinople in 381, we have this four centers: Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, and Antioch. In the Council of Chalcedonia in 451, we have this pentarchies, or the five patriarchate in the Eastern Church, and the big divisions began: Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. And in this Council of Chalcedonia, we have the biggest Christological debates. And here the Maronite start to be present in all these debates, and to be known between all the churches. You know, in this councils, the Maronite monks, or this community of Saint Maron, defenders of faith. So they began in the Eastern Church as known as defenders of the Orthodox faith, or the faith of the church. The Church of Antioch in Council of Chalcedonia was divided in two different churches called Monophysites, or Syriac Orthodox, and Chalcedonians. Between of these Chalcedonians were Maronites and Greek Orthodox. So that to know how this church is born also in all this theological debate. So we are Chalcedonians. So we defend not the idea, but the faith of Chalcedon. In this time, after the council, the Emperor Marcion give the order to build the first monastery of Saint Maron in Brad, in the north of Aleppo, in 452, pardon, in 452. This is also a ruin from this monastery. Why? Because he wants that this community, or these monks of Saint Maron, defended the Orthodox dogma of Chalcedon. And we will see this church born in Chalcedon as church to defend the faith, and that will be for her, she have to pay for that. And to pay, that means to give witness, and sometimes to be martyrized because of this faith. That's why in our history, the early history, we have this massacre of 517, where 350 monks from this monastery was killed by who? By the Syriac, or in the time by the Syriac Orthodox Church, or the church who was against Chalcedon. It was a fight, so they entered in the monastery and they killed these monks. And from this time, so from 517, the Maronite Church will be always, we say, in exode. So she have to live always her places, her monasteries to be and to live a long time in history, persecuted by many many invasions. The first, it was the Persian invasion. Maronite were persecuted. They fly to the Mount of Lebanon to find refugee in the Mount of Lebanon, and within a few years, after over 800 monks adopted this way of life after the Maron death and became known as the Maronites. But later we will see during all the invasions, the Muslim invasions, for example, for 7th century till 10th century, conflicts with the Byzantine Empire caused the Maronite to flee the plains of Syria and their churches and monastery to the natural protection of the mountains of Lebanon, where they first lived in caves and grottos, and then later built small churches and monastery. And literally, as a patriarchal church, begin our history in 787, Maronite organized themselves around the first patriarch, Saint John Maroon. Okay, he also took the name of Maron. His name was John Maroon, and whom they elected patriarch because in this time the it was a vacant see of Antioch, and developed themselves in within the Catholic Church. This Maronite Church has been enriched by 3 centers of learning and culture. So begin with Maroon, Beit Maroon, then the first patriarch persecuted all the history till now, because I don't want to enter in all the history, all the last 1,500 years of persecution, but till now we say the Maronite Church is like all or many of churches in Eastern, they are always persecuted by different ways. Okay, sometimes physically, sometimes morally, sometimes in the politics, but they still give witness to their faith to the Lord Jesus Christ. This Maronite Church now have 3 centers of learning and culture, and that to make for her a very not very, I don't know, this is a very important church, but a very different church, and really a church with so many culture in her life. You know, I thought about Maronite Church. The first center of learning and culture was Shur Antioch, a city in West Syria, now Turkey, that served as a center of commerce and education at the time and was known for its Greek and Syriac culture. Antioch gave the Maronite Church much of her unique liturgical life. So that's why our liturgical life is very impressed by the Antioch spirituality and theology. Second, Shur is Edessa. Edessa is a prominent city in ancient Mesopotamia, which had a Semitic culture and influenced the prayers and hymn of the Maronite Church. So, for example, you know, one of the most famous saint or influencer for the Maronite Church is Saint Ephraim, doctor of the church, who gave the Maronite Church much of poetry and prayer. And third characteristic is Lebanon. So Antioch, Edessa, and Shur for the Maronite, the Lebanon. This land that provided a safe having to establish a stable monastic and parish life, as well as schools to educate the children of the close-knit and devout Maronite families. Maronites have been a positive force for the development of Lebanon, and especially the last 100 years in our history, and Lebanon as a country of peaceful coexistence for all the people. They have a role to play even in the society and the politics, not only in the church. Maronite now live in many cultures. The mother church is in Lebanon, and daughter communities exist throughout the world. To finish, I prepared for you as a conclusion 5 distinguishing marks of the Maronite Church. First and foremost, Maronites are Antiochian. I talk about that. Maronites share a historical, liturgical, and spiritual heritage with all the other Catholic and Orthodox Antiochian churches. What does mean now? That means that the Maronites, they have always a role to play in the ecumene dialogue, because we have a lot common between the Maronite as a church, but with the Greek Orthodox, with all the Antiochian churches. So they have this big role to play also in the ecumenical dialogue. Second, Maronites are also heirs of Syriac culture and religious heritage, whose language, poetry, and hymnody were the means used to express the mysteries that God is beyond all descriptions, yet has come close to us in Christ. So they have also tradition with all the Syriac churches. Second characteristic of this church, Maronite are Chalcedonian, as I talk about the council. Maronite are Chalcedonian, meaning they were staunch supporters of the Council of Chalcedon, convened in 451, which taught that Jesus was true God and true man. In this formula, Maronites found a balance and way of life that placed them forever in the communion of the universal church. And the third, the Maronite church is patriarchal and monastic. As I said, when you visit Lebanon, you visit physically the churches, you see many monasteries as well as parishes and churches. Saint Maroon was a hermit priest, as I talk about that, and the first Maronites were monks, priests, and laity associated with the monasteries of Saint Maroon in the 5th and 8th centuries. And her first patriarch, Saint John Maroon, was chosen from among the monks, and this tradition is still now between bishops and choose bishops and patriarchs among the monks. Maronites have a cherished history known for an ascetical life of sacrifice and devotion. Fourth characteristic of this church, Maronite church, ensure for her the communion with Rome. The Maronite church is known for her love and attachment to the See of Peter in Rome. This relationship has allowed Maronites to fully express the Catholic faith held from the beginning, and at the same time be part of the balance between East and West. So that's why I say it's all this characteristic gives the Maronite Church really a place and an important place and a big role to play in between churches and between this relation between West and East, between Rome and all other churches in the Middle East. Fifth, sure, for the Maronite Church, Lebanon, still her spiritual homeland and the land of her patriarchs and people. That's why when you encounter Maronites you see that they are very attached to Lebanon. Even we are now fourth or fifth generation in USA or in Canada or in Brazil. For them, Lebanon is this place is a holy land where they want to be to go all as a pilgrim and to visit this homeland. So that's why they are very, very attached to Lebanon as a country, but really as a place where they also they find their history, their cultures and traditions. That's why I finish um, this my talk about the Maronite Church by citation of the Pope Saint John Paul II when he visited Lebanon in 1996. He said this very famous: Lebanon is more than a country. It is a message of freedom and an example of pluralism for East and West alike. And the Maronite Church, when I talk about the nation, the Maronite nation, they are very attached to this Lebanon, and they believe that Lebanon, and they work hard that Lebanon still, even we have many problems now and many very critical situation, but they still believe in this Lebanon, this land, this message of freedom and coexistence with Muslims also and Christians. And thank you for your